Hi, and welcome to the Jordan Kinda Knows Something show, where I'll be talking about health, fitness, life, and anything else I kinda know something about.
So what changed for me was, Jordan, that I just gained so much energy when I went plant-based that I didn't need rest days anymore. Like I still have a rest day or even two sometimes, like more mentally, that I don't have to go to the gym every day. But like my body, the kind of aches and injuries and joint pains and tiredness and muscle soreness, all that literally like went away. And that was just mind-blowing.
Why, hello there, everyone, and welcome to another week and another episode. Welcome to part 2 of the Plant-Based Strong series. Thank you all so much for listening last week to part 1, and for those of you who have not listened, be sure to go and check out part 1 of the series with Rosalind, where she kind of talks about gut health and all aspects of gut health, essentially. I personally learned so much about the gut. I learned things that I did not know before, everything that was kind of involved in the gut, everything that the gut infects, or I guess everything that the gut involves in the body. So it was a super interesting and enlightening episode there. And today's episode is going to be another one. It is going to be another cool little, I guess, episode here, but it is going to be a little bit different in the sense that I am talking to an athlete. So we, during today's episode, are essentially talking about being a plant-based athlete. So today I am talking with Tui, who is based out of Bali right now, and essentially she is going to be sharing with us her journey on being a plant-based athlete. So essentially what she did when she transitioned to a plant-based diet, and essentially the changes that she noticed in her energy levels and her performance, and just kind of things throughout her daily life. So this is another super interesting episode, and Tui offers a lot of insight around being a plant-based athlete and tips and tricks there. So I am so excited for you all to hear today's episode, and let's get started. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode, and I am sitting here today with Tui. How are you doing today, Tui?
I'm very well, thank you, Jordan. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Bali and just enjoying life.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a really nice day here in Australia too. In Bali, is summer just starting there, or has summer passed?
Well, kind of Bali winter is just passing
Okay.
over, but that's kind of the nicest period here. So now it's the kind of start of the rainy season, but
Mm,
today is like there's no signs of rain. It's just super sunny and super beautiful. So
okay. Yeah, because I guess here in Australia, summer's just starting, which is opposite. Because I'm from Canada, and the seasons are opposite in Canada. So I know like winter starting, and it's like gonna get really cold. But yeah, it was a nice day. Spent it on the beach today, so that was good today.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but if you don't mind, maybe getting started by just introducing yourself and telling the listeners a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. Do you want like a long version or a
Anything
short
you
version?
want. We have lots of time.
Amazing. Awesome. So yeah, my name is Tui van Renterghem, and currently I'm living in Bali for about 2.5 years now. I used to live in Thailand before that, but originally I'm from Finland. And I've been a fitness coach for about 10 years. And recently I went fully online, so I'm able to, live the life in Bali, being geographically and financially free. And I just adopted 2 puppies, rescue puppies. So
Oh.
that's changed the everyday life quite a lot, having like these more living in the moment kind of life a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been plant-based for a little bit over 5 years now,
Okay.
and that's changed a lot of things to me. I'm sure we're gonna dive deeper with that later on.
Yeah.
And I've been always into sports since I was a little girl. I remember I was like in kindergarten. I was like asking guys to chase me with their bikes so I could run because no one was fast enough to like chase me with running. And then I found CrossFit in 2016. I got really, really into that. I started coaching quite soon after that. And yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell how I
Awesome.
ended up here where I'm now today.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Pretty exciting, I'm sure. So the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast was, of course, because of you being plant-based, and adopting that lifestyle, this being the plant-based series, but also you being CrossFit athlete. And I kind of wanted to try and talk a little bit about that and how you being plant-based and if you've seen any difference in CrossFit, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit more depth later on. But maybe if you don't mind getting started by just speaking a little bit to when you first started kind of this whole plant-based journey and why you made the switch.
Sure. Yeah. So this was a little bit over 5 years ago. I was living in the Netherlands at the time. I was studying there, and I came across this video series of a slaughterhouse. Someone had shared that on Facebook,
Mm.
and at that point, I already had kind of a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling. I was raised vegetarian till I
Right.
was
Okay.
7 years old. Yeah, and when I went to school, I started to get like people laugh at me and treating me a little bit as a weirdo because I was the only one not eating meat.
Right.
And I remember being really like sad to not being accepted for it. And then I just closed kind of my heart. I always was like an animal lover, so at that point I was like switching off and not
Yeah.
thinking where the meat was coming from. And yeah, it was up to the point of a little bit over 5 years ago that I started to get a little bit uncomfortable with the kind of knowing that it was against my values.
Mm.
And then I came across this video series, and I just watched the first few seconds, and that kind of broke the wall what I had built around my heart about it. And then
Right.
I made myself watch the videos, and since that day, I've never ate meat again, and I started educating myself on the topic, and I found out like how the industry works, like how unethical it is and how bad it is for the planet. And then
Hmm.
that was like the main reason why I went plant-based. And then I started to find out from all the health benefits. And then it got really
Right.
exciting because, when I switched from this regular animal-based diet, I was working out like bodybuilding style at the time, and I
Yeah.
was really obsessed with my food. I thought I was eating clean. I was like carrying my food everywhere, and like super stressed about protein and calculating everything.
Yeah.
And then like learning this whole new world of plant foods. I didn't even know about all these like uh, I had never heard of like chickpeas and stuff like that, at least never tried. So it was
Right.
really interesting to go really into a new world, studying all that and then seeing the benefits for myself. So what I saw was like I gained so much energy straight away when I started, because at that time veganism wasn't this popular. That's now like it's
Right.
exploded, right, in the past few years.
Yeah.
At that time I was like, I didn't know anyone who was like training hard and being vegan. And first, of course, I was a little bit like, how is that going to work and how I'm going to get my protein?
Yeah.
um, yeah, then I started eating a lot of like raw foods and like whole food plant-based, and that obviously I'm sure we're going to go deeper with that, but that
Yeah.
changed everything for me because I just started feeling so much better. I gained so much energy. I got really lean, and yeah, that was just the best decision I've ever made.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's super interesting, like talking to different people being vegan and plant-based like you and just the different reasons. Like I know you're saying you watched the series and just kind of that ethical point of view. And I know my rationale in the beginning when I first made the switch was more so the environment and more so my health. And then kind of researching more and looking at it and adopting like the ethical point of view and all of that. So it's super interesting to see people's kind of different reasons of why they've wanted to make the switch. And it's super awesome to see how at the end of the day, like we all kind of have this reason that have brought us and made us make the switch. And then we've kind of researched and now we all kind of see the same kind of things. But what I'm kind of interested in is when you first made the switch 5 6 years ago, how did you go about it? Because I know for me, when I've made the switch, I like switched overnight and I just essentially like went one day eating like eggs, meat, everything to the next day eating absolutely none of that. How did you make the switch?
Oh wow, that's really good of you.
Yeah.
I know a few people who have done it, but
Yeah.
most people I know, have done it more gradually. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. For myself, I after I saw the videos, I knew like I'm never gonna eat meat anymore. So that was like straight from there. I cut meat out,
Right.
and then I became really like obsessed about learning everything I possibly could about the nutrition side as well. And how I did the transition, I actually started to just add plant foods. So
Okay.
instead of, I was using a lot of like dairy products, for example.
Mm.
So instead of like cutting off everything, I was like, I remember I went to the supermarket, I was spending like probably an hour every time just reading the labels and like learning,
Yeah.
okay, what is vegan and how to
Yeah.
replace stuff. So I started, for example, like just trying, okay, today this week I tried soy milk, and then I tried some other plant milks.
Mm.
And then I just, naturally started leaving out also the dairy, and the last thing I left out was eggs.
Right.
So yeah, it took maybe around, I don't know, 1 month, like in
Yeah.
total, to fully go plant-based.
Yeah. And I think that's super smart too. Like, I know I said, oh, I just made the switch, but honestly, there are so many people out there that maybe can't do that. And maybe you make the switch overnight, like I did, and you kind of like fall up the bandwagon a little bit easier. So I definitely recommend doing it like you and maybe gradually like replacing foods. I'm just the type of person I needed to make the switch because if I didn't, I wouldn't make the switch. Like I just kind of come up with reasons why I didn't want to and this and that. So that was my reasoning for doing it overnight, and it was super hard just like
Mm.
going one day.
Yeah, I can only imagine, because that's what I see a lot with people, unfortunately, who tell me that they tried going vegan but it didn't work for them. But I find, like, personally, the most common reason for that is that people are not educating themselves, that they're not
Yeah.
educated what they're doing. And if they just, if you're eating a diet with a lot of animal products and you just cut everything out and you're not replacing the animal products with good quality foods, and first of all also eating enough, which I
Mhm.
find is the most common problem, because plant food, if you eat whole food plant-based, it's volume is bigger, but obviously calories are much less. And this is like sad in the way that so many people kind of get a bad experience, that
Right.
they try it and then they feel tired and then they just report that it wasn't for them, but that could have been avoided with just doing it properly. So this is like something I always tell people to, listen to these kind of podcasts, for example,
Yeah.
to like get the tips and to actually do it properly. Because when you do it properly, I think it's almost everyone. It's like a perfectly balanced, healthy diet. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's super important to note because, like, I think it's just important to listen to your body because if your body, like, if you're making the switch, for example, and you're not replacing and you're feeling more tired, I know tiredness is a lot. Um, I get a lot of questions. Oh, do you feel tired? Blah, 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 when you're vegan. And I know, like, if you are feeling tired, that it obviously means that you're lacking something, right? So you probably didn't educate yourself, like you were mentioning before, on how to not make yourself feel tired, on the vitamins and nutrients that you need. So yeah, I think that's super important. The education aspect, I really like that point that you made. But when you first made the switch and when you were kind of transitioning, um, did you find it to be easy or difficult at that time?
That's a good question. I think I just got really excited about it, because for me
Mm,
the reason, my why was so strong, because I made such a strong connection with the ethical side, and I
yeah.
felt like someone just took the blindfold of my eyes. And then when I started to like learn about how the whole like industry works, about keeping people sick, and then the medical industry, all this, like I went really really deep with that. So
Yeah.
I really obsessed with knowing everything. So for me, the why was so clear that I was just like educating myself on a daily basis all the time. And then it kind of just came really naturally, because I wanted to do it. I didn't have those moments that I was like craving something, because I was like, I'm never gonna, I don't never want to participate in that anymore.
Right.
um, so I think it also then, when I started CrossFit quite soon after that, and then I was again the weirdo, like in CrossFit, the typical diet, at least at that time, was really strong, like meat and vegetables. So the
And
meat was the kind
paleo.
of biggest thing. Yeah,
Yeah, the
paleo.
paleo diet I remember was super huge at one point with CrossFit.
Yeah, the whole zone thing. And then I remember like people were like not believing that I could be vegan and a CrossFitter. And what made it really cool was when they started seeing like how well I was performing, and I got like, if I could show some pictures to your listeners, but I got like, I was already in okay good shape because
Yeah.
I was working out a lot, and as I told, I was like really I thought I was eating really clean, but then when I started eating plant-based, I got very, very lean. So I like lost all the unnecessary fats, and I got like really muscular, and that's obviously a really nice body type for like CrossFit performance.
Right.
And then instead of people being like first at the start, like, oh, you cannot do CrossFit, like you're not getting enough protein, da da da. Then people start to get curious, like, oh wow, so how do you do this? And like asking tips and stuff. So yeah, I think for me it went in that sense quite easy because I was like really motivated to do it.
Right. Okay. And that's, I really like that point. I want to dive a little bit more into that CrossFit and the energy and protein and stuff, because I know me, I'm the exact same way. When I first made the switch to like a plant-based vegan diet, I think I just started working out too. And prior to that, I didn't even work out ever 6 years ago. I think I was just starting college. I didn't even work out in a normal gym. I think the CrossFit gym was my like very first box that I went to, or the very first gym that I went to. And I know like I was super skinny, and I still am skinny, but I've gained a lot more muscle simply on a plant-based diet, which I think people are always so shocked with. Because
Mm.
I think in the industry, like the fitness industry, it's very meat oriented, and you can't gain muscle without meat. You can't gain muscle without protein and this and that. So essentially, I'm interested, what are some kind of things that you had to adopt, if anything, when you were working out and when you were doing CrossFit? Because I know as an athlete, you have to eat different than somebody who isn't an athlete, right? So was there anything different that you had to implement into your life?
I think what happened for me, the biggest thing that I realized was this big protein lie that
Right.
I thought for so many years that I literally cannot survive without eating these massive amounts of protein.
Yeah.
So at some point I don't know if you know what is quark. In Finland is a big thing. It's like this thick kind of yogurt
Okay.
made of cow milk, which is
Okay.
really rich in protein. So
Yeah.
at that time, I was eating 1 kilogram of that each
Oh,
day. So
wow.
because of the protein, it doesn't taste really like amazing. I was just like so obsessed with protein because I thought, I'm an athlete, I have to get a lot of protein.
Mm-hmm.
So what was kind of the biggest adjustment when I switched to plant-based, and when I actually like educated myself on the required amount of protein, which is way less than people think. Even for athletes, it's like 1.4 till 2 grams per kilogram,
Yeah.
which I was like over probably doubling at some point.
Yep.
Uh,
Same here.
so, yeah, so I learned that like you get protein from different sources, that you don't necessarily have to have that piece of chicken or piece of meat or dairy for that. So yeah, in that way, I just kind of yeah, a light kind of switch off, like, oh wow, so I can actually consist like this nice healthy, for example, salad bowls without having one source of protein and still meeting my protein requirements, if that kind
Yeah.
of answers the question.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think that's super important to note as well. Like, because I was the same way when I first, I guess, started working out. I was super, I guess, interested in protein and thinking that you needed so much. And yeah, that value, I think the like 1.4 to 2 or whatever value, I was trying to double that all the time. And on a plant-based diet, it is sometimes hard to get protein. Like, it's hard to get the protein that you think you need, if you know what I mean. Like, you think that you need so much more than you actually do. So I remember I was eating like so many like of the processed vegan sausages and vegan burgers and all of that, because there was always like 25 grams of protein in one of those things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was also like 25 grams of fat and like all of these other super unhealthy oils and things that I probably
Mhm.
shouldn't have been eating all back then. So I'm interested in, I guess, more the diet that you follow. Because I know you mentioned before, like the raw foods diet and things like that. What kind of things do you look for, I guess, when you're going through the grocery store? Because I know now versus 6 years ago, for example, there are so many more options or plant-based vegan options in the grocery stores. But a lot of the times I think what you can get in the grocery store isn't necessarily healthy, even if it has the plant-based label on it. So, um, what kind of what kind of things do you look for, I guess?
That's such a good question, Jordan. And it's funny you mentioned the vegan meat substitute and stuff because yeah, I went down that road as well. Because when I went plant based when I was in the Netherlands, veganism wasn't really popular at that point. So
Right.
I kind of just went on eating everything available. So I was eating
Yeah.
a lot of like massive salad bowls, like raw food, whole food, plant based diet. So I went kind of from eating a lot of like meat and dairy and that into like switching straight into this what I believe is the healthiest version of the vegan diet, whole
Right.
food plant based, and that's why I felt so good, so amazing. So I was just like eating a lot of yeah, vegetables and fruits and beans and chickpeas and all that. But then when veganism started to gain popularity and there started to come all these amazing products on the market, I also went down that road that I was like, which is good, by the way. I really believe it's such an important thing and helps people to transfer and
Yeah.
understand that you don't have to just eat carrots when you go vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything today is veganized. It's epic, like even ice cream, burgers,
Yeah.
everything. So I went down that road. I was like eating all this stuff because I wanted to first of all test everything that comes on the market. And yeah, I was at that point I was really much more like concerned about the macros. So I was looking much
Right.
more into like carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. But then yeah, I started to feel as well it wasn't really good for the body to like eat massive amounts of these like processed foods and soy products and like packaged foods. And then I started to go more back into where I started, so back towards the whole food plant based and keeping things more raw. And I started to understand like what organic means and how to eat more like locally produced seasonal foods, which also saves a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, eventually, just because I felt so much better, like if I think of a diet that I really thrive, it's when I eat a like large variety of natural foods straight from nature that are like not losing energy into the digestion, that I can
Right.
just provide my body straight with the fuel and all the variety of vitamins and micronutrients as well.
Right. Okay, cool. Now, I'm super interested in kind of branching off into what you just mentioned a little bit earlier about how you started to feel better. So, what were your energy levels like when you first started making kind of the switch to being plant-based, or even versus kind of like now? Were your energy levels kind of depleted at first, or did you find them kind of skyrocket in the beginning?
Yeah, this is one of the things that really motivated me at the time as well, because when I made the switch, I started to gain so much more energy. I felt
Okay.
that some kind of fogginess just like left my body.
Right.
So I don't know if it's like the digestive process that is required to break down like meats and like these heavier animal products, or maybe there's other reasons as well. But everything combined, I felt that I didn't get any more this kind of tiredness after eating. And I even felt like my whole kind of mental, like my skin cleared up, but also mentally I felt like I was so much more connected to everything, to the whole universe or whatever people want to
Yeah.
call it. And kind of like, yeah, I felt like I just kind of net gained so much more energy. But I think for me it was also easy in that sense because I was already quite aware of nutrition. So
Right.
also through my studies, so I knew that I was aware that I have to eat a lot. So if I was eating a lot before I went plant based, I was eating even more like in
Yeah.
volume when I made the switch, because I had to eat, because as you know, like plant based, the volume goes up a lot if you eat whole food
Yeah.
but the calorie density is less. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think for me, I was lucky in that sense that I was aware that I have to eat enough, which many people don't.
Right.
So yeah, I think that was just the biggest motivator, like health wise, that I just started like thriving with my diets, how I
Right.
was eating.
And I really like that, like how you just mentioned that a lot of people don't eat enough and whatnot, and how when you're on a plant-based diet, like if you think about it, yes, because the caloric intake that you're putting in is a little bit less if you're just eating vegetables and kind of like a raw foods diet, but it just means that you get to eat a lot more. I mean, like if you're someone like me and loves food, you get to eat a lot more. So it's like a plus, a win-win in my
Mhm.
books.
Definitely, yeah, same. And that's something as well, like what shift is that after I went plant-based, I didn't have to calculate anything anymore, like because when I was eating animal products, I was kind of all the time aware of calories and the macros, and kind of it was kind of a really restricted diet in the sense that it wasn't coming from kind of intuition. And I was like, I never would, like really rarely I would eat treats, and I would be really aware of like sugar and stuff like that. But when I went
Right.
plant-based, even now, like I can eat like cakes and cinnamons, whatever I want, because I don't gain weight, because
Yeah.
obviously the base, I really want to highlight, the base has to be a healthy, balanced plant-based diet. But then there is also room for these processed meats and treats and stuff like that. But I stopped stressing about food, really. Like I stopped calculating anything after I went.
Yeah. And that's I love that point, because I remember I think at one point before I started plant-based, I think I was calculating too at one point. I remember having a scale and all of that, and going plant-based, yeah, you don't need to calculate, or as long as you're following like a healthy base, like you were mentioning, your healthy balance throughout your normal days, then you can add like an Oreo here and there, or you can add these things here and there, because the calories and the quality of foods that you're getting is a lot better, which I think is super awesome when you're following a plant-based diet.
Definitely.
But I'm also now interested in, when you are going plant-based, or now that you are plant-based, how do you feel during CrossFit? I know you were saying before you were kind of doing more the bodybuilding type stuff, and then you went to CrossFit and you noticed like your performance change and you were able to increase and whatnot. But how do you feel like your strength levels are and things like that? Because I think a big misconception around people not wanting to go vegan, especially athletes, is they don't want to lose, I think, strength, or they don't want to become weak or whatnot. Whereas like, I think more and more athletes are going vegan. I know in like the CrossFit community, there's James Newbury, a CrossFit Games athlete that is now vegan. So how do you feel being like a CrossFit athlete, a coach, and being vegan?
Really good question. And I love that question as well, because this is one thing that I see throughout my training, and also being a coach in the health and fitness industry, that people always stress so much about the gains and about
Yeah.
performance, which is of course important if you're an athlete especially. But then, like, giving that example that it can be perfectly healthy and super strong, perform really well on a plant-based diet. And as you mentioned, like more and more people and athletes are going plant-based. And since I started, I didn't know, I think, anyone in CrossFit, like at least like in my circles. And now I feel like every third person is already plant-based and going to,
Right.
tell me and ask me about stuff. So yeah, but your original question was how I feel with my performance. So what changed for me was, Jordan, that I just gained so much energy when I went plant-based, that
Right.
I didn't need rest days anymore. Like
Okay.
I still have a rest day, or even two sometimes, like more mentally, that I don't have to go to the gym every day. But like my body, the kind of aches and injuries and joint pains and tiredness and muscle soreness, all that literally like went away. And that was just mind-blowing, because I don't know exactly, like I know that animal products are acidic, and they make an environment in your body that can be more optimal for like forming disease and stuff like that. But I'm not going to go in depth with that, because that's not my expertise. But kind of from the practical what I saw personally, this is exactly what happened. I think I was able to provide my body with good quality foods. And as we spoke before, like when you don't lose energy in the digestive process that much, I just lost all kind of like tiredness and those aches that I used to have. And I was able to add a full training session in a week, which is, if you think of a long term, it's massive, like how much you can, speed up your progress with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super awesome. Because I think that's, again, like a super big misconception that people fear is like losing the gains and whatnot. So it's super cool to see people like you who are stating that, yeah, no, you're actually improved and you're getting more energy and you're able to train more, which in the long run can be better. So I think that's super important to note there. But I'm interested now, what are some maybe tips for people who are maybe an athlete, let's say, and wanting to incorporate more plant foods into their diet, maybe wanting to make the switch, but don't exactly know where to go? Is there anything from, I guess, what you've learned over the years that you would recommend to others?
Really good question. I would definitely recommend more kind of the approach with the transition what we spoke earlier, to
Yep,
maybe
me
not the
too.
overnight one.
Yeah.
Because I think what is important for people making the switch, or even not like having to have the mindset of has to be black and white. Maybe for some people the idea of like going fully vegan might be even like scary, or like completely too far, that maybe even just thinking about reducing animal products or adding more plants might be like a good starting point. And what I would recommend, what really worked for me and what's worked for many of my clients, is that you start exploring new foods. So instead of thinking, okay, I cannot eat this anymore, I cannot drink milk, or I cannot eat meat, it's like, okay, next time or next week, I'm going to focus, for example, I'm going to try 2 new breakfasts, which are
Right.
plant-based. So instead of having my regular omelet and bacon or whatever, I'm going to try a recipe for scrambled tofu, or I'm going to go out to a restaurant, to a vegan restaurant, and see what they have. So maybe having like more that mindset of making it exciting and meaningful, and starting to explore new things and taking one thing at a time, might make the journey way more enjoyable, and what I believe is way more sustainable in the long term, unless there is people like you, Jordan, who get so motivated for whatever reason that the switch just happens like that.
Right.
But what I think for most people is important, if they want to, and what I would of course want for everyone to be, the goal is that it would be long term and
Yeah.
sustainable, to make it like this exciting kind of lifestyle change, rather than just kind of restricted diet, which someone would try for a certain amount of time and then kind of fail in it because it was too hard to keep up with.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, like if you do the whole transition, like you can gain ideas by going to restaurants. I mean, now that it's 2020, like there are so many vegan restaurants out there, or even normal restaurants that have plant-based options on their menus. So it, like gaining that, I guess, education and looking at cookbooks and what you like and what you don't like. Because I know like there are things or foods out there like tempeh, for example. I really don't like tempeh, and it took me like, I think I bought a block of tempeh, I cooked it one day, and just wasn't my thing. And I think that was like my first week of going vegan, that I tried that. And I know like if other people were out there and they're kind of doing the whole transition, well, then you have a lot more time for you to figure out things that you like and that you don't like, so that you can implement these changes more long term. So I really like
Definitely.
that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I also think is important is really understanding that you don't have to give up anything. Like at this point, when we have now like Beyond Meat and Impossible Burgers, and like we
Yeah.
have vegan ice cream, like literally everything imaginable is made vegan. To maybe start even with the kind of food you're familiar with, even that wouldn't be the long term to stick with kind of the meat substitute, for example, but to like realize for yourself, like if you really love to go out on Friday night and have your burger, to try like a vegan one, like actually a good vegan one, something that's recommended. And then you can see like, you don't have to give up anything. You can have your mac and cheese, your pizzas, your burgers, anything. And then once you kind of realize that it's not a restriction, it's just going to add more variety to your diet, then you can start, also looking more into the healthy foods and that. So I think that could be also for someone like a relief to understand that it's not like you have to give up your favorite foods.
Yeah. And that's a super important point there. It's like these companies like Beyond Meat, for example, like I did a review on them on my blog like years ago. And when I talked to them during the review, they told me that like when they first started to create their Beyond Meat burgers, their intention wasn't necessarily just for vegans. It was for people out there wanting to maybe make the switch, or for other people out there to kind of know that, oh, this is what plant-based can be. So just to kind of help those people make the switch so that they do make the switch and then they learn a little bit more and kind of it's easier for them to transition. So a lot of these brands out there in the grocery stores that you see, yeah, maybe you're not going to have them longer term, but it's super easy for you to kind of make the switch now because you can kind of go to these brands and refer to these brands, and kind of, if you're craving a sausage, for example, you can find a really good vegan sausage. So I really like that
Exactly.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But where can people find you? Social media, website, anything like that you have that you want to plug?
Yes, so people can find me under the name of The Vegan CrossFit Girl. So that's my website, thevegancrossfitgirl.com. Also my Instagram, The Vegan CrossFit Girl, where I'm actually also just in the process of building a course for starting vegans or people who want to eat more plants or reduce their animal products. It's like a 3-week online course that provides you with a lot of like easy, simple recipes, maximum 15 minutes in the kitchen, like basically
Awesome.
the way I eat, my knowledge packaged in 5 years.
Wow.
So that's something,
okay.
If some of your listeners is interested to learn about that, that will be out by the end of this year. And then I'm also starting out a YouTube channel, also with the name The Vegan CrossFit Girl. So yeah, those are probably the main channels. And Instagram, if you want to reach out, is the easiest and quickest way.
Awesome. Okay. And that will be in the show notes below, everyone. So be sure to check all of that out. But I thank you so much, Tui, for being on the podcast. This was super awesome and super informative. And I'm so glad you were able to be here today.
Thank you, Jordan, for having me. It was a pleasure.
No worries. Alrighty, everyone, that is it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening so much to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. Be sure again to head to the show notes below to check out all of Tui's links. They will all be there. Her Instagram, her website, everything will be down there for you to click and for you to go and visit her. Thank you again for listening to today's episode. And I know I've mentioned it a few times already, but if you don't mind, please, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give the podcast a 5-star review. It really helps out the podcast. It kind of helps out, putting the podcast on charts and putting it on more visible areas just so that other people can have a listen as well. So thank you all for listening to part 2 of the plant-based series, and I will talk to you all next week.